The background of the song you're listening to. Good morning. We're passing through, and so we'll try and make the best out of what we have or what we have seen here. Good morning, Ghana. Good morning to the rest of the world.
Good morning.
It's a wonderful Monday morning. I guess your weekend was fantastic, but if it was not, well, God
There's
is
another
always
weekend
there.
coming.
There's another weekend coming. God is always there to support you wherever you are. Grateful you are with us on your screens this morning. My name is Bright. Dr. Nana Majiman is here. I gave her Angelina last week. I don't know if she's changed her name. Dr. Angelina.
I never took it.
Do you like
That's
the
the point.
Angelina, please?
No, please.
Oh, don't like it?
No.
Do you like Florings?
No, please.
Do you like
I don't like any. No Christian names.
Okay,
Thank
Johnny.
you.
Let's
I like
go ahead.
Nana
Do you like
Ajiman.
Cleopatra?
You could even add Prempe.
Do you like
You can
Vanessa?
add whatever you want to add. So far, it's coming
Let's
from
give
Ghana.
Jezebel.
Mini Bell. Thunder fire you.
But this song was before the days when
Yeah.
the minimization took a different level, and he had KK Fosu Shakawale go to Binim's church to go and sing. This was the days when the real message for me was being preached.
The real gospel.
You know, not messages about prosperity and about Yedi and all of that. This was a clear reminder. You know, and I think we should go back to those days.
We certainly
those days,
should.
yes.
We're just passing
The
through.
past week has been great for me. I mean, my birthday week, and I thought it was over. Saturday, Sunday.
There was some big thing.
Mortons. So I thank everybody, and happy birthday, I must say, to Michael Nana Kofi Boache. He's 8 years today.
Aww.
That's a son of our own gifty here.
Right.
So Michael Nana Kofi Boache is 8 years today.
Today is
Also,
your birthday.
yes, also to Zaid of Zaid Jewelry. It's your birthday today. Happy birthday to
So,
you.
Michael, that's from all the uncles around here. When mommy finishes the jollof rice, don't eat all. Keep some because we're passing through the house.
But mommy should have known that coming to work, she should have brought
I'm
the
even
jollof.
Some to-
surprised. I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, you prepare. You know, back in the day when you were going for our day, you prepare the jollof the night
Enough.
before. Then in the morning, you just
dish
warm
it
it
out.
and dish it out.
The
you know.
economy is not easy to be preparing food for masses.
The pockets are really tight. But anyway,
right.
today is World Suicide Day. Unfortunately, it's not anything to talk about, but the fact that people really are in a world where they don't have people to communicate with or show signs and, you know, symptoms of depression. And I think as much as we talk about these things, we should always remember that the person next to you may be going through something. Just a word may be the thing that changes their mind from actually committing suicide. So as we go about our normal activities, particularly now that social media is rife, let's pay attention to what people put out there. Let's pay attention to what people say, because it just may be the last word the person is putting out there, but maybe timely intervention from a friend or someone who
Could
just
save
thinks
a life.
could save a life. It's time for
I
us
think
to talk
that
about
largely it dwells on our social protection, what do you call it, philosophy as a country. What is it? Do we even have a social protection philosophy? There have been instances where a man has been consistently abused by his wife. He goes to Dofsu to go and report. And then the policewoman there would ask, now when you're Bema, aren't you a man? Why do you allow your wife to beat you? But for all you know, if he had extended that arm and returned that favor, it would have been a different ballgame
I
altogether.
like beatings from women.
Then everybody would pick it up. Everybody would pick it up and say he's been abusing the wife, and that will be the narrative. So such a person, out of frustration, out of perhaps shame and embarrassment, may want to commit suicide. But that is not it. So our social protection is very critical.
Mechanisms are hands.
Look, there could be a
Good
student in class. We're told about a BC candidate who committed suicide because he didn't get posted and he didn't know what was going to happen. It's a social. It's because we're playing with everything. It's a social protection, you know.
But guys, in as much as we want suicide to be a thing of the past, I'm also tempted to believe that should there be cases recorded from now to, let's say, the end of the year, there will be victims of the banking crisis.
No, you see, you
Not
can't straight
necessarily.
away start assuming that this will be it. I mean, before the banking crisis happened, there were people who were jobless. Before the banking crisis happened. So I'm saying that our social protection as a people, like Amma said, your next door neighbor should be of paramount interest to you. You know, you should not wait for the person to die for you to go and do
kind of
someone. Yes. I went to the beach the other time with Asempa, and we saw a lady, you know, out there on the beach, and we were suspicious.
Sitting,
She was
sitting
standing
alone,
in the sun.
Sometimes you think that she just there
On
to
a weekday.
de-stress.
So I'd gone to do my community connect with my recorder.
Right.
Then we saw her from a distance. So we walked up to her, asked her what's up. And she said, well, she had a broken heart.
Can you imagine?
So we could have left her and not
You
attended
could have
to her.
actually done what people will do, social media, pick up your
Yes.
phone and record
Record
and say,
it.
oh, she's
Yes.
here alone and make
Yes.
fun of it. But you took that extra
So
step.
when
And I think that's where we need
we
to
spoke
get
with
to.
her, and then she said, she explained to her that she had a
Right.
broken heart, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. We talked to her. And then she picked her things
And left.
and
You see?
If we had left her there was nobody on the coast.
She probably
Imagine.
would have
Okay.
drowned
But I also woke up
herself.
this morning to this post from a friend. She's Nigerian. He said, I've prayed and tried, but it's not working. Been depressed for 14 years, and now it's pulling me apart like never before. And he put his number there, just if need be, but it won't be necessary. I sure will miss this Instagram. 14.2 followers. What an honor. Who am I? Son of a black praying mother. I appreciate all the love and comments and likes over the years. I love you all for real.
That
See you
sounds
when I
like
see
a
you.
sign
That
out.
sounds
No.
like a sign
And
out, no.
he needs the help.
I just sent you a message,
But you see,
and it was
we
blue tick.
need to talk
But
to,
you see,
we need to talk to
yes, but you see, again, people are in situations that are depressing them, and they consistently are there. Look, you're dating this guy, he has no work, you work, you bring the money, he eats and does all the things with you, beats you up, and he's seeing other women with the money that you bring. That's depressing. And you're still there. You call that what? Love? That's stupidity. That's what Councillor George will say, stupidity.
We'll be talking more about
Yes,
we'll
move
be
out
talking
of
more
that
about
place.
But also this morning, before George picks up the news, we're welcoming the body of Kofi Annan
Yes.
to the source of
Yes.
government. So certainly it's going to be a packed day this morning. Sure, we'll be updating you on all that.
There's been a fierce debate out there as to how suddenly the conference center has been designed and all the money pumped into billboards. People are thinking, could we have used that to get beds?
Well, we'll get back into that right after the news with George.
So news is up next year on your favorite morning show, Newday. Do stay. And thanks for staying. And coming up this morning, close to 30,000 newly trained teachers across the country will begin at the maiden teacher licensure examination today, September 10. President Akufo-Addo has attributed the impressive 8.36% growth witnessed in the Ghana's agricultural sector in last year to effective policies and implementation by his government. The mother of one of the two beneficiaries in the second batch of Media General MTN Foundation's Think Heart Save a Child initiative says she's confident her son would fully regain his strength after his surgery. And thanks for staying alive on DSTV channel 279. My name is George Quinn, and on to our very first story. Close to 30,000 newly trained teachers across the country will begin the maiden teacher licensure examination today, September 10. And the candidates are those who completed colleges of education this year and those who read education in the various universities and colleges and want to be employed by the Ghana Education Service to teach in public schools.
Examination will be held in all colleges of education in the country except Christ the Teacher, Akimodam Methodist, St. Ambrose, McCoy, Cambridge, Jackson and Holy Spirit colleges of education. A total of 28,910 are expected to write the 3-day examination, which will begin with essential professional skills on Monday, September 10. Candidates will write the paper on literacy on Tuesday, September 11, and numeracy on Wednesday, September 12. Applicants have had to pay a registration fee of 220 cedis. The introduction of the examination to be conducted by the National Teaching Council was met with a lot of agitations by some teacher associations and trainee teachers. The National Association of Graduate Teachers, NAGRAT, and NAT kicked against the decision primarily because they claim governments did not consult them prior to introducing the examinations. NAGRAT argued the new policy, which includes giving new job titles to teachers and applying for license, among others, have not been well thought through. But according to the Council, the purpose of the examination is to enable qualified teachers to acquire a professional license to ply their trade. The licensing examination is also aimed at improving the professional standing and status of teachers and to register teachers in Ghana. The initiative, according to the GES, is prescribed by law and part of the education sector's professional development, which the NTC explained is mandated by the Education Act 2000, Act 778, Section 9.
And the mother of one of the two beneficiaries in the second batch of Media General MTN Foundation's Think Heart Save a Child initiative says she's confident her son would fully regain his strength after his surgery. MTN and 3 Foundation are paying for the surgery of 2 hole in heart patients as part of their corporate social responsibility.
Reynolds Iswando is one of the beneficiaries for Media General and the MTN Foundation's Think Heart Save a Child initiative, which was launched in May 2018 to give support to hole in heart patients. Before undergoing surgery, the CSR team from Media General and MTN paid a visit to the family to check on his current health status. Reynolds is the second of his single mother's 3 children. They live together with an aunt because his mother engages in house cleaning chores for a living and is unable to rent a place for the family. He was diagnosed with hole in heart at age 5 at the Kodabu Teaching Hospital.
I never expected that my child will suffer from such illness. I least expected support for my child to undergo this surgery.
At KG1, his education is threatened by his health status. He easily gets tired and sometimes convulses due to his condition. Media General's 3 Foundation and MTN Foundation considered their plight upon a request for social support and have supported the family with $8,000 to enable him undergo a corrective surgery. Group Head of Corporate Affairs for Media General, Richard Agnyagle, entreated organizations and philanthropists to support the initiative.
But there are quite a number of other children out there. So come on board. Every little donation will go a long way to make a difference.
The Sustainability and Social Impact Senior Manager for MTN Ghana, Robert Kuzoy, expressed MTN Foundation's resolve to support whole and heart patients.
This is the 4th surgery that our support has been able to cater for, and I'm happy to say that the process has been very successful.
You can also send your contribution to MTN mobile number 024-527-0081 on all networks, or by check to 3 Foundation, or make donations directly into the TV3 Social Support Fund with account number 6010603927 at Zenith Bank.
If you're just tuning in, you're watching news here on Newday, we are live on DSTV channel 279. Now let's shift to the presidency, where President Akufo-Addo has attributed the impressive 8.36% growth witnessed in Ghana's agricultural sector in last year to effective policies and implementation by his government. He made this observation at the 2018 Africa Green Revolution Forum in Kigali, Rwanda.
Between 2014 and 2016, Ghana's agriculture witnessed an average growth over the period of 2.5%. In 2014, Ghana's agriculture grew at 4.65%, 2.78% in 2015, and 2.95% in 2016. President Akufo-Addo told the gathering Ghana decided to revive her agriculture with the launch of government's flagship program, Planting for Food and Jobs. The result of government's agric policies, the president said, was an increase in the production of maize from 1.9 metric tons per hectare in 2016 to 3 metric tons per hectare in 2017, an increase in the production of rice from 2.7 metric tons per hectare in 2016 to 4 metric tons per hectare in 2017.
The 3 years before we took office, Ghanaian agriculture grew at something around 2.5% per annum, 2 or 3% of growth. In the country where population growth is at 3%. What we decided to do to revive Ghanaian is to devise a program which we call Planting for Food and Jobs.
President Akufo-Addo announced government has put in place measures for farmers to access cheap credit.
We're devising also financial instruments that would enable farmers to have access to credit, the most important of which is the one that is being done with the collaboration of the Bank of Ghana. The Bank of Ghana is establishing a fund, some 500 odd million cedis, which is roughly over $100 million, which is going to act as a sort of insurance for the commercial farmers, to banks, to be able to give out loans at reasonable rates to the farmers.
President Akufo-Addo told the gathering his government has been supplying fertilizer to farmers to boost yield. The forum had as part of its panel Rwandan President Paul Kagame, Deputy President of Kenya William Ruto, and Prime Minister of Gabon Emmanuel Nsonze Ngondet.
And the Minister of Health, Kweku Agyeman-Manu, has assured unemployed bonded nurses and midwives of receiving their appointment letters by the close of the year, having been cleared by the Finance Ministry. He was speaking on the sidelines of a mid-year performance health review conference at Nsuta in the Ashanti region. Here's a report by Ibrahim Abubakar.
Hundreds of unemployed bonded nurses and midwives staged a protest across the country on Wednesday to register their displeasure over government's inability to offer them employment. They were unhappy their acquired knowledge and skills were not being utilized at a time most health facilities across the country continue to grapple with shortage of staff. But the Health Minister, Kweku Agyeman-Manu, assured them of having been cleared by the Finance Ministry.
We had plans to actually recruit them as far back as March. We asked even those who attended private schools to come to register so that we can capture their data to know how many were still sitting at home. Some have sat at home for as far back as 2012, and we sympathized with their cause, right? So this year what we tried to do was to bring all of them on board, and we applied for financial clearance from Ministry of Finance.
At a mid-year performance review conference at Nsuta, the sector minister hinted on plans to establish a national emergency call center to tackle the inadequacy of beds at the various health facilities. Participants were drawn from all regional representatives of the Nursing and Midwifery Council.
And now on to the foreign front. Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni on Sunday warned against foreign interference in the country's politics, days after an opposition call for the United States to suspend military aid over the government's human rights record. And last week, the U.S. lawyer for opposition lawmaker Robert Kuguyani called on the United States to stop funding Uganda's military as a punitive measure against what Kuguyani said was torture by authorities in his country. Museveni also accused some unnamed foreign countries of seeking to influence the nation's politics by fueling assistance to the opposition through non-governmental organizations. If there's any problem in Uganda, I surely will handle it better than the outsider. It's important that external players refrain from interfering in the internal affairs of other countries, Museveni told a press conference on Sunday. And you can, engage us on Stories and so far on social media platforms. On Facebook, it's News on TV3, and on Twitter is a News TV3. Just so you know, the remains of late former Secretary General of the UN, Kofi Annan, will be received today at the airport. And so you might want to stick with TV3 for update on this development. And on to other news. They are the ones that left behind after a loved one commit suicide. Some never recover from the shock of loss, others sink into depression, and sometimes also attempt suicide. As the world marks Suicide Prevention Day today, we ask, does society care about those left behind, or it only allows the vicious cycle to continue to mourn another death? Mundlai has more.
Suicide across the globe is regarded as bad death, a moral evil that brings shame and dishonor to family and community. It is a taboo attempted suicide is criminalized under Ghana's laws and is seen amongst religious groupings. Families with suicide history are usually treated like outcasts, with young men and women facing difficulties obtaining marital suitors in some instances. Hope, not his real name, lost his childhood friend, Rich, also not his real name, to suicide. He believes his friend may have committed suicide over poor academic performance at the senior high level.
One day we were just there and we were making fun that, hey, so if your results come in is very bad, then it means you kill yourself. Then we laughed. I thought we were just joking. We went to check and the results was totally different from what he told us. But
his friend took his life.
I had a knock around 3. I was told, oh, your friend is dead. I didn't believe. I just went there, I entered the house, saw my friend lying down. So probably because of the academic competition too, it might have had an impact on his decision.
Left in a state of shock and denial, Hope resorted to his family and a female friend for support. The story of Faith isn't any different. She lost her husband to suicide. Battered by him, she left for the hospital. Upon her return, he was gone.
The children were outside playing, unaware of his death. I knocked the door severally and later forced it open, and I saw his lifeless body.
He was suffering from a chronic disease. His death brought untold hardship on her, but that wasn't the worst. She's still suffering from the stigma.
I had decided to leave my children in the care of my sister, so I also end it all. But I realized I would overburden my sister, who already has 6 children. On one occasion, a drunk nearly attacked me and accused me of killing my husband. I had to seek refuge in someone's shop.
Both Hope and Faith have not received any form of counseling, but try to live normal lives. Community psychologist and researcher on suicide prevention, Johnny Ando Arthur, says stigma does not help the recovery of those who have lost their loved ones.
People to really understand that these people who lose relations, they go through a lot. I mean, nobody at all losing a significant person. You go through certain psychological problems, and so these people really need care. They need understanding.
He admitted the country has not done much on a suicide prevention plan.
We don't have any suicide prevention plan in Ghana. And without a plan, there's not much we can gain. These guidelines and policies really even highlight how the media should even broadcast suicide news. Sometimes we over-sensationalize it. It's as if they just want to sell the story, but they are not concerned about the very needs of these people.
Checks with the Ghana Police Service reveal the service has no national statistics on suicide. CEO of the Mental Health Authority, Dr. Akwesi Osei, admits they have succeeded in providing mental health services at regional and district hospitals, but more needs to be done.
But we want to go down further, even to the CHIPS compounds, to the communities, so that you don't need to travel far. We have not got there yet. We are gradually getting there. But you require resources, human resources, financial resources. And we are trusting that in the next few years, we'll get there.
What happens to those who are left behind?
The police, as I said, the homicide unit, they often may be the first or amongst the first to come into contact with this. So our linkage with them will then be for them to refer such people to us. For now, unfortunately, there is no such structure. We now need to put in place the structure. We need to meet with the police and together arrange how such situations will go on.
He says in other jurisdictions, there is a toll-free line dedicated for mental health, but laments the telcos in Ghana do not support it.
A dedicated toll-free line. We've managed to get a line, but we are not announcing it yet because it's not been activated. To activate it means that when somebody calls to the line, it will be free to that person, but not free to everybody. Somebody has to pay the bill. The telecos are not prepared, and I'm emphasizing the telecos are not prepared to take up the bill as their corporate social responsibility. But you go one round and you realize that you'll pay not less than 9,000 Ghana cedis a month. And for a poor agency like ours, it's difficult for us to pay.
Globally, strengthening the capacity of countries, especially in developing nations, for early warning, risk reduction, and management of national and global health risk must be a priority, as stated in the Sustainable Development Goal 3. If you or someone you know is considering self-harm, please get help. Call the Mental Health Authority on 050 99 140 46. Wendy Lai, TV3.
And that was Wendy Lai's report on suicide as Ghana joins the rest of the world to mark World Suicide Prevention Day today. As I said early on, the body of late former Secretary General of the UN will be received today at the Kotoka International Airport. And so, trust TV3 to keep you updated on this development in our subsequent bulletins. But that's it by way of news this morning. Many thanks for making time with us. You can get more news updates on our website, 3news.com. I'm Josh Quinn. Thanks for watching. Good morning.
So the proliferation of social media is good. However, some people don't use it only for the good, but also to perpetuate the bad. But this week, we're celebrating Social Media Week, and we want to find out advantages, disadvantages, how we can blend these two so we get the best out of social media. Talking to me this morning is Abdullah Yusuf Mahmood and Pamela Techua, both program coordinators for the Social Media Week. Good morning, gentlemen and lady. How are we doing?
We are good.
So, I mean, social media is great. The advent of it brought a lot of liberation in the fact that you don't need to travel to see someone in person before you can have communication. But also, it's come with the bad sides. Let's touch on the bad first, where we've got trolling, we've got all manner of things going on the net. Tell us about it, and how is social media we going to address these things?
Okay, so I think the advent of social media has given people the opportunity to own their voices, to share their thoughts and all that. Right. But in most instances, they go towards the bad side where they pick on people, they intentionally dig up stuff to humiliate or taunt other people. Right. So for Social Media Week this year, we have a session we are calling Closer Doesn't Mean Colder. Okay. Although we are closer, although we are having meaningful conversations as a community, it doesn't mean we should be cold to each other. Right. So we have all these public figures and celebrities coming to read some of the main posts and then tweets people have shared about them, and then talk about how they've dealt with some of these things. Because I think some of these kids coming up, they need to know one or two things from these people, try to understand how the ecosystem works, and then fine-tune their behavior online.
Well, Pamela, this is the second Social Media Week that is being organized. But for you, what has been the impact? And do you think it's beneficial? Do we need to continue this?
I think not only is it impactful and necessary for us to keep going, Social Media Week is a global platform, so Ghana is just one of the cities that creates it. The change that we have seen in our attitudes towards social media has changed completely over the last year with the advent of more entrepreneurs showcasing their business on social media, more entrepreneurs using social media as the primary means of promoting their business. So not only is it necessary that we keep doing it, we are positive that we'll continue to do it with themes that actually translate to people that people can relate to. Last year, Accra was connected. We used Accra is connected as a theme. And between then and now, we have seen that people are still using Accra is connected to relate their hustle, to relate how they deal on a daily basis. So we are hoping that in the next year, Closer will also take on that same shape. And next year, we'll come up with another theme that would resonate globally.
But would you, from your perspective, say that this whole trolling and the negative sides of social media have come about because people don't, in some countries, the law, like our country, the laws are not enforced. And also probably people don't understand how social media is supposed to work.
I think it's just human nature. I mean, back in the day when we were in primary school, jerseys and things, people were still trolling others. It's just a matter of telling people what how to deal with those things. People will forever be humans. You get it? Whether it's social media or it's traditional media, people will use their pulpits to bully others. So we just need to have meaningful conversations as to how we can curb it, how we can control the situation, and how we can tell the next batch of people who may jump on social media how and what to do right when in those situations. Yeah.
Very well. But also tell us about the program coming up, the whole week. How are we celebrating it in Ghana?
Okay, so for Social Media Week Accra this year, the events are starting today with a launch at the Accra Mall around 10 a.m. with the Minister of Communication, the Mayor, the Vodafone CEO, among other dignitaries. And then we'll have Closer Doesn't Mean Coda in the evening at the University of Ghana campus, Pentagon Hostels, where we will have Sandra Kobia, John Dumelo, Sister Debbie, Afia Odo, among others, come through to share some of their trolling experiences. And then tomorrow we are having the gig economy. Tomorrow is all about freelancers. So how people have been able to build their businesses through social media, how they've cultivated clients, and how they continue to grow their loyalty online. And we, from then, the next day is for brands and then consumers. So brand loyalty, brand affinity, and all that. How social media is helping brands to build upon their image and then to leverage on the power of the platforms to get their messages across to the consumer. And then we have ads also happening, and we have other sessions. So to engage and then get people excited about the week and everything, in the mornings we are having aerobic sessions, we are having yoga, we are having dance sessions and all that, and we're having master classes on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. So if you're a content creator, I think Social Media Week is the place you have to be. If you're a brand person, you have to have some of these conversations with the people who understand the platforms and would help you maximize the use of these platforms. If you are the everyday person, you need to come around, come have conversations with people, come understand how the platform works, how you can use the platform for something, if it's building a business or starting a school or a social activity, whatever it is, there is something for you at Social Media Week.
Pamela, just recap the theme, where today's launch is happening, the time, and whether it's free or not.
Okay, so today it's officially starting at Accra Mall. 10 o'clock we have the launch, like Carl mentioned. There's going to be the mayor, there's going to be the Honorable Minister of Communications, and all events at Social Media Week is free, completely free. All you have to do is go to the website, smwaccra.com, and book your sessions. It's non-brand specific. You can book for as many sessions as you can, and all the sessions are mostly going to be held at the Accra Mall. We have some of the master classes like Facebook, YouTube sessions that may happen outside. You just have to decide on which sessions you are interested in, and it will show up on the location. So we are excited for the week, and we hope that people do come.
Is it only happening in Accra?
For now, yes.
For now, but you plan to spread it?
We'll see.
Very well, guys. Thank you so much, Abdallah Yusuf Mahmood and Pamela Techiwa, both program managers for Social Media Week in Accra. Certainly today they're launching at 10 a.m. Accra Mall. Let's all head out there, because social media is good, but it all depends on how we use it. Let's get the best out of it today. Let's go out there, support them, because this is for Ghana. Let's all support and make sure trolling becomes a better thing rather than what it is now. Let's take a break. We'll be back here with more on Newday. Well, today marks World Suicide Prevention Day, and annually 1,500 cases are recorded in Ghana. The spate seems to have increased over the years, but we're wondering, is there anything that can be done to help these people? Is it time we talk about it more to find a solution to it? Let's step out and rant.
You wake up one morning to a headline that reads, a 10-year-old girl has committed suicide. And so a lot of things run through your mind. You would wonder, what would make a girl of that age take her life? And in an era of technological advancement, one would have thought suicide was a thing of the past. But trust me, it's not the case. Ghana records 1,500 cases annually. And out of every single case recorded, 4 go unreported. And so it brings the number of unreported cases to 6,000 annually. And Ghana joins the rest of the world today to mark World Suicide Prevention Day. And so what can be done to ensure we nip this menace in the bud? This is Daily Rant. Let's keep talking. Have you had any thought of committing suicide?
Yes, you know, in our part of the world, everybody one way or the other may have that thought. So when you are hit with disappointment, you think that, hey, I mean, the Abrabo is saying, when you are hit with failure, what exams one pass, hey, when you are hit with pains and now certain bitterness, you say, hey, you understand. The second thing to have to do with our self-esteem is very down as individuals. We think that somebody should help us before we become successful. Be any confidence when we move in our part of the world. You understand? And the most important thing is we compare and compete. This is a comparison. You go school. You go out to me results, be near dear cry. When you're 4 over 10. Now again say, only a binya, you go to only a trip also and you remember this. 4 over 10. What I say, you go school near my buy the results. I bet you go to FIFA. FIFA no any bad. FIFA be a nipa 20 what to do for any bad. Now my me akwa share on next one neighbor. Sir, I say we won who neighbor no. So yeah, ma dey too much to look at. We dey compare with who is abrabo no. Uni obi na e wo competition. Bentisa. I remember say na me go competition with teachers. Teachers for no. Oh dan no yen so for bi by I say oh. I problem with be and so I refu in
the face, okay, sure.
Okay, cherry point blank. And I'm sorry crying me the what I say. It's Sunday man getting way na can want to fema. If you neglected, then we are so the hope. Said they won't do we crank yet.
So Doc, looking at all these challenges, you can't blame someone who commits suicide. Under no circumstance should we blame anybody who commits suicide. Often I've been hearing, and unfortunately sometimes the media making fun of and I watch me. If we are saying this now making fun of it. Nobody should make fun of somebody who attempts suicide. The person really needs help. Indeed, when you approach to a certain point, as you said, then all your coping mechanisms break down and you see only hopelessness. And you think the only way out is this. But that means that person at that point requires help.
All these factors comes up with the pressure that society impose on us. If you don't have the money, what do you get? If you know buy the Benz, what do you get?
There's much less than Benz.
You get so the lay down rules that society have set
marry
for
at
us.
25.
You go after school, you get married at this, but it's not. It shouldn't be like that. You understand? We all get up in life. It shouldn't be like that. We should know that there's more to life.
Suicide is very real in our part of the community. I was reading one article which has to create an impression, say indeed, every year, annually in this country, almost 1,500 people commit suicide. And even out of that one that we report, 4 are unreported cases. Meaning if you are supposed to even report the unreported cases, it's almost 6,000 cases. Yeah. So definitely, it is obvious. And we shouldn't also take it out, the factors that triggers the suicide. That is the state of depression. In our normal lives, we normally do encounter so many states of grief, especially to an extent that we want to commit it. You see, in my community, I happen to be coming from a community in Eastern region, Osanase, and when you go to that community, there was this friend. He used to be a senior of mine at our primary level. You see, he was having a girlfriend that he stated he stayed with. And in fact, everybody in the community knew that they are in that kind of relationship. They will marry. And so all of a sudden, we got to know that the girl has left him. And the next thing that we heard was that he has been hospitalized and later he died due to DDT because the girl left him. You see, it is something, it isn't about the statistics alone. No. It is real out there. So the question that I think we should be asking right now is, what are we, in as much as I've not been in that kind of situation, many people are in that kind of situation.
I know Section 57 Clause 2 of the 1960 Criminal Code criminalizes suicide. A repeal will help? You think so?
We need to repeal it. What will help after repealing it? What the repeal will do is that
as at now, we are likely to, in fact, we jail people wrongly. And I myself, I organized a press conference for one person about 8 years ago who was jailed because he had attempted suicide. And everything showed the guy had actually depression. And yet he was jailed. We are lucky that he did not complete the suicide in jail. So the repeal of the criminal code, what it will do is that people who go into such situations, you recognize them as having problems, mental illness, or problems that require resolution. Then you give them the support. But with the law as it is, the chance that you put them in jail, and then the problem will be there.
I think what we have to do as a society is we have to empower each other. Like, let people feel valuable in a part of their life. Grow our self-esteem. That life is not measured by the position or
somebody's success to measure yours.
Yes, we have to empower so that even when you are in any situation, you just have a personal motivation that keeps you moving. And that is all. Because if we were to be like Abraham and Co, who as of 90 years, God said you'll be the father of all nations, you don't have a son or you don't have a child, how will you feel? If we were to be Daniel that was put into lions, then how will you feel? You understand? People have passed through. So we have to empower ourselves that challenges, pains, bitterness, and all those things are part of life. They are not going to live as failures and all those things. Once you attempt something new, you fail and a whole lot. We have to empower ourselves as individuals so that we can move on. And the most important thing we have to do in our part of the world, have to see developing human resource as a key thing in every aspect. Because when you are developed psychologically, physically, and mentally, you know what to do and what not to do and where you are going and sense of direction. But our courses in this are part of the world from primary to GS. There's a lot of changes should be done so that some of the courses will empower you. When you listen to American national anthem, you realize that the person singing the national anthem is very valuable to the nation. And therefore you have something to give your nation, you understand. But our part of the world, we think somebody should help you. Oh, hey, so people, you know, we have that kind of thing that at least you need certain support before you can fulfill. Okay, it's very bad. Okay, you understand.
Okay, should our suggestions be, put into use? Do you see a time coming where we, record 0 cases? You see that coming?
Well, I'm sure we will get there, with time. I mean, if all these things we spoke of today is being taken care of, you understand? And I believe when the structures, the government putting all the structures we need. If you realize it is amongst the youth that lots of cases are, if you travel elsewhere, at the age of 10, 11, 12, I mean, your parents have for you some kind of fund, some support. 18, 19, you are good enough to live your life. But here in Ghana, no, it doesn't happen. You get it. And so it is very difficult. When your friends are making it and you are not, you begin to think. So when all these processes, when there are proper measures after school, there's some fun for you just to take care of yourself and live the life you want to live, a better life, and you'll be able to survive.
But Doc, have you had that thoughts of committing suicide? I just want to know.
No, I haven't. But on the other hand, that doesn't mean that I've done well. Maybe, especially with my background, I've adequately prepared my background. But the point that you asked earlier, whether we think that we can get to 0 suicide, I think that would be too optimistic to say we can get to 0. Because the fact is that, as I said earlier, suicide is a sign of an illness. And to say 0 means that there will be a time when there will be no illness, that particular illness. So illness will be there, but you'll be able to minimize it, reduce it to the barest minimum. That is what we are actually hoping at. Hoping to get. You mentioned 1,500. We are hoping that the time will come where the whole year we will say only maybe 5 or 10 people committed suicide. That would be a good achievement.
How can you ensure those unreported cases will have the victims questioned out?
Indeed, apart from the unreported, maybe another frightening statistic is that for every one person who attempts suicide, in fact, for every one person who commits suicide, about 6 to 10 would have attempted. So the 1,500, multiply it by 10, and that will give you the number which attempted. And for every one attempted suicide, 6 to 10 would have planned it. They planned, but they don't have the courage.
But Doc, I ever tried. I scanned the building, the ceiling, to see if it was solid. But I didn't do it. I don't know if I was scared, but I've had that.
So we are among those who planned, but never went to the point. And again, for every 1 to 6, every one person who plans, 6 to 10 would have contemplated. Planning means that you decided that, oh, how should I do it? Oh, yes, I'm going to use this method. Or you even prepare yourself and then you don't go further. But before then, many people would have contemplated. The thought would have occurred to them. Why don't I do it? Then they stop it for various reasons. Oh, my mother, my father, my child, what most. So if you imagine all that, it means for every year, about as many as not less than 10,000 to probably 50,000 would have thought of suicide. But it never went further. And so we need to be able to make sure that we have, as you said, empowered people so that, yes, the thought might come, but if it comes, we find a way of solving it.
Today's discussion has been on suicide, and statistics, I must tell you, are mind-blowing. And so if you have any depression whatsoever, just seek medical attention so you don't have any thought of committing suicide. I know you watching home want to join the discussion. Just log on to our social media platforms. On Facebook, it's News on TV3, and on Twitter, it's our News TV3. It was great having Dr. Akwesio Sir with us. He's the CEO of the Mental Health Authority, giving us more insight into this menace. Thanks for watching. Good morning. This is
Welcome back. Let's get now into our news review segment. The Ghanaian Times this morning reports that Kofi Annan's remains arrives today. Ghanaian Times publishes pullout on him by Wednesday, we're told. President Lord's government's policy for agri sector growth in 2017 and the Kofi Annan Center, University of Ghana, celebrate Kofi Annan. KIA Terminal 3 to commence full operation by September 15. The Daily Guide this morning reports that President hails planting for food and jobs. Auditor General snubs Nana over $640 million CDs contractors audit. And GRA in bed with tax defaulters. Nunu Mensah punches Mahama. The finder says we did nothing wrong. GMPC outlines benefits to Litasco deal. 6.8 million Ghanaians are poor, according to the Ghana Statistical Service. And physician assistants to embark on strike today. 500 million CDs credit facility for agric in the offing, according to the president, and 14,254 nurses get financial clearance. BNFT says one district, one factory requires $10 billion to thrive. Bank of Ghana acts to curb banking fraud. Value of reported fraud hits 190 million CDs in excess of same. Signed on to African Trade Insurance Initiative, Activa Boss advises. The Daily Graphic says Agric gets boost 500 million Ghana cedis as loan insurance to farmers. Comes a photo of Paul Kagame and the President Akufo-Addo there. Court finds businessman for unlicensed insurance firm operation, and Kofi Annan's body arrives today. The Herald says confusion hits Catholic bishops over National Cathedral. Palmer Buckle left hanging by church. Akufo-Addo gets cooked. Free SHS award in Rwanda. Sponsor is a family friend. And Ransford Jampo rejected as UG political science head. My guest this morning is Deputy Minister for Communications, George Nayanda. George, good morning. Thank you very much for coming.
Good morning, my brother.
And Felix Facho-Fosu is a former Deputy Minister for Communications as well. Felix, good morning. How are you doing? How's the Monday morning going?
Well, it's okay.
So, George?
So far, so good.
Same with you. Kofi Annan's body or his remains will come in today. What are your fondest memory of him? Let me start with you, Felix.
Well, a very sad reminder, I must say, of the fact that we've lost such an eminent global statesman. I recall very vividly in 1997 when he was elected as the Secretary General of the United Nations, and the sense of pride that it filled all of us with, and the realization of the fact that the African was capable of rising to the very highest levels of international affairs. Over the years, he discharged himself with distinction. He discharged his duties with great admiration and tackled some of the most intractable global conflicts with dexterity. He helped resolve some of them, helped defuse. I recall the intervention he made in Iraq when the U.S. threatened to invade Iraq over alleged violations of the international protocol on nuclear proliferation. I recall that Mr. Amman stepped in, traveled to Iraq to meet Saddam Hussein and negotiated some settlement of that particular dispute. And there were many, many theaters of war where he intervened and restored peace. So on his demise, one can only look back and regret the fact that such an eminent personality in global affairs of Ghanaian origin has left us.
Right.
And he will be very difficult to replace. I can only reiterate my condolence to his family and all Ghanaians, and urge all of us to participate in the funeral and give him a befitting send-off.
Right. Thank you. George?
I think I share in the summary that Felix has given, and he surely is one person, a global statesman. He placed Ghana high up on the world map. He's somebody that his actions, his behavior, his attitude was clearly worthy of emulation, and it is indeed a sad day, not just for Ghana, but for Africa and the whole world. I believe that he lived a life that is worthy of celebrating, and it is good that the government is giving him this state burial. I understand that his remains are coming in tonight.
Absolutely.
Tomorrow there'll be the public viewing from 10 to 4 p.m., from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And I'll encourage all Ghanaians to pay our last respect to the honor and memory of His Excellency Kofi Annan. Our condolences to his wife, to his family, our condolences to everywhere that he has worked, and may his gentle soul rest in perfect.
He had a certain aura of peacefulness around him and calmness, and you would find that his disposition to even conversations in very heated situations was very calm. What can we learn from him playing on the political landscape, for example?
Can I go?
Yes.
I guess when Felix was talking about the number of things that he was able to do, the number of peace arrangements that he was able to sort of broker, it certainly must have been facilitated by the kind of person that he was. And then for Felix and I, who are fairly young politicians, I mean, clearly we must learn from people like Kofi Annan to be able to carry the people along and to be able to gain the level of respect that is required and the level of aura that is required as politicians. And so it's something that is clear. I mean, his whole lifestyle, his whole calmness is worthy of emulating, and he's someone that I'm sure very few of us would have run away from the opportunity to have him mentor us. I mean, if that opportunity was there, I'm sure it would be a big struggle to have somebody like Kofi Annan mentor us, not just in politics, but in life in general.
As well. Yeah. Felix, you want to take a quick bite? Let's wrap up on this.
His calm persona and disposition masked a certain steely resolve to stick by his principles and what he believed in. Again, I recall the crisis over the Iraqi invasion in 2003 and how he denounced the U.S. Invasion despite considerable pressure from the almighty United States of America, the UK, and other global powers. I mean, he stood his ground and insisted that invasion was illegal and that he had not seen sufficient evidence to justify that kind of invasion. He urged caution and restraints. Of course, he was not successful in that instance at preventing the invasion, but it displayed a certain principled stance, which was greatly admired by people around the world. But despite that toughness and capacity to withstand pressure, he came across as a very gentle, affable, amiable personality. And I do not recall anyone who has any, if you like, unkind words to say about him in the period that he has left us in this world. So it's something that we all aspire to as young people and hope that we are able to find somebody of his stature once again to put Ghana's name
Let's look at the daily. Thank you. Let's look at the daily graphic. It says Agri gets boost 500 million as loan insurance to farmers, and it says the agricultural sector is to receive a big boost following the government's move to establish a 500 million Ghana cedis facility to support the growth of the development of the sector. President Akufo-Addo has said the facility is to serve as some sort of insurance for the commercial banks to give out loans at reasonable rates to farmers, he added. This would be the very first time we're hearing about things like this, George. In fact, we have been told that some 745,000 jobs have already been created in the agri sector, a figure that's been challenged on some fronts. But should farmers be excited about this, especially when the roads that lead to their farms and to the markets are not clean? The fact that they would have to sometimes struggle for fertilizer and all of that. Should they be excited about this particular news? 500 million?
Well, I think that yes, they should be excited about the opportunity of this facility being made available to them. Farmers need resourcing to buy farm produce. They need resourcing to be able to hire tractors. They need resourcing for chemicals, fertilizers, and all sorts of things. And one of the biggest challenges that farmers complain about is the lack of access to credit facilities. And you know, the way that the farming system works, because of the seasonality of the farming system, there's pressure on them at the beginning of the farming season, and if you are not properly resourced, then you lose out of that opportunity to invest in seeds, fertilizer, chemicals, sometimes even land, having your farm plowed, paying for the workers. But once you have access to some financing at the right time, at the right interest, then obviously you are able to get into the whole productivity sector. I do admit that there are certain farms that would have challenges in terms of the access roads that you have mentioned, but I don't think that should be a reason why farmers will not access the resources. I mean, if you look at the whole plan for the $1 million that's supposed to be getting into each constituency, the idea is to be able to facilitate some of this infrastructure development to be able to give farmers proper access to road, proper access to water, proper access to electricity, and at the end of the day, for us to modernize our whole farming activities. And I think that is what the Ministry of Agriculture is looking at doing, building on what the previous administration was doing.
What impact will this, for example, make? And I'm asking this because if you look at the Agricultural Development Bank, which was set up to promote the interest of farmers, now they are doing a lot more commercialized banking. What impact would this make? And again, I'll ask about the roads, about the fertilizers, about even people's attitude towards agric. Even though we all say agric is a big part of our economy, the impact of this 500 million, is that a panacea?
Well, I'm not sure that anybody is saying there's a panacea, but it's an injection of an arrangement to help farmers access financing, to be able to buy seeds, to be able to buy chemicals, to be able to buy fertilizer, to be able to pay farm hands, to be able to plow their farms, and to be able to fully engage in farming activities that is required. I mean, as you had said yourself, the focus of the Agri Development Bank seemed to have shifted from looking at the core farming activity to other retail or business commercial activities. Now this facility is focusing on farmers. I'm sure that there will be a preferential interest rate. I mean, that would be beneficial to the farmers. So I think it's a good thing that the farmers must access. Of course, I mean, this is something that should be consistent going forward, and the timing should also.
But the report didn't say when this facility is going to be available to the farmers. Do you know?
I don't have that information. I don't have that information.
Right. Thank you very much, Felix. So 500 million as loan insurance to farmers. It isn't the first we're hearing about this. Good news. I will ask you the same question.
Well, ordinarily, it would be news that one cannot contend against. except that there has often been a lag between these pronouncements and actual implementation on the ground. $500 million is roughly, in today's terms, about $100 million.
Right.
So first of all, I would like to see the part of the budget statement where that is captured, where it was said that 500 million Ghana cedis has been allocated or earmarked for such an initiative. To the extent that it's not in the budget, it raises concerns about whether or not government means business when it announces some of these policies. Or is it the case that it's an initiative that will be implemented next year or some other year? The lack of a time frame gives cause for worry as to the viability or otherwise of this particular initiative. Again, I like to look at the facts as they exist on the ground and measure them against the pronouncements that government officials make. Bearing in mind that there have been some initiatives that this government has said it is implementing in the agri sector, the planting for food
and jobs.
I would like to see what outcomes have emerged out of that. It does not appear like the program itself is yielding any significant.
The president has lauded it.
Well, you know, you see, the mere implementation of a program is not sufficient basis to laud a government. You need to look at the outcomes. What are the outcomes? Has the planting for food and jobs made Ghana a more food secure country? In other words, have we met our food security needs? Are we able to meet demands? What are the volumes of production? Is food less expensive today than it was when the program started?
Right.
Indeed, the latest figures that we have from the Ministry of Agriculture shows that it is not. In May, the Ghana Statistical Service reported that food inflation was at 9.8%. In June, it had jumped to 10%.
They're importing more.
Absolutely. And if you go to the market, you see that food prices have shot up considerably. So what is it that is making or ensuring or accounting for the fact that there is a program that is supposed to boost agri production, and yet food continues to
We're told that the foundation is being laid.
Well, but the way that it has been spoken about does not give the impression that it is only a program that is at the foundation stage. We are told that it is something that has yielded massive dividend. Indeed, you mentioned the figure of 745,000 jobs that the Agri Minister claims have been provided because of the implementation of this program. And you measure that against the fact that a few days after the Agri Minister made that pronouncement, the President was in the House, Parliament, to read the State of the Nation address, and he stayed clear of that particular figure. Indeed, if the President was leading a government that had produced that number of jobs, it would easily stand out as the most significant achievement of this government. And to the extent that the President was not confident enough to own that figure, created difficulties. Again, if you look at how they themselves say they calculated that figure, it creates the impression that they are out there to, if you like, mislead the people of Ghana. They say that they come to a farm, they provide you with some inputs, fertilizer, and some other agri inputs, and they count the number of people that are working on the farm with you. So these are not necessarily new jobs created because of the supply of farm inputs, but they simply give you a bag or two of fertilizer and other inputs, and then count that you have 1 or 2, 3
But given
farmers.
the fact that farming is seasonal, is it not?
No, but I'm not talking about seasonal farming. What I'm talking about is that they sought to break down how
exactly. So if you get into a farm,
yes,
and there are harvesters there or people who are planting,
but the point I'm making is
for,
that
for a season, those are jobs.
I'm not saying that these are not new farms. They are not farms that have been cultivated because of the introduction of this program. They are already existing farms. Except that agri extension officers and other officials from the Ministry of Agri who are involved in the implementation of this program go and supply some inputs. In any event, it's not the first time in Ghana's history that fertilizers have been supplied or farm inputs have been supplied. And then they count the number of people working on the farm and then multiply it over the number of farms that are receiving these supplies and say that that is the number of jobs that
the new jobs created.
Absolutely. So you find that there's really a disconnect between the words that we are hearing from government and the actual realities on the ground. Again, in what way has government assured us that this program is actually going to take off? Or that it is not one of those things that are said periodically within the political landscape of this country in order to create the impression that government is onto something big? Because if you weigh this against other programs that have been given massive publicity by this government and have not taken off, then one begins to lose confidence in the words that the president.
But this 500 million gives hope.
No, but I'm saying that George spoke about the $1 million per constituency that was promised. As I speak to you, there's not a single constituency that can say that it has received $1 million. We are in the second year of the Akufo-Addo government, in the first year, in the first budget statement that was read, a certain amount was earmarked as the amount that was going to be used to finance this initiative. It didn't happen. We were told that the date had been shifted. Indeed, we were promised that in August of 2017, the disbursements would start. It didn't start. We were told that they needed to set up development authorities, 3 of them, I believe, in order to disburse these monies. That has happened, but the money has not hit any account in any constituency. So why should we have any more confidence in a government that keeps on promising more? They spoke about 1 district, 1 factory in August of 20. That's barely a year ago. The president was at Ekonfi and promised that by November of that year, 51 of these factories would take off. It didn't materialize.
So you don't believe that this
now,
will come?
I'm only recounting things that have been said. Now this, compared to the other promises that I've spoken about, would sound like a minor promise. I'm talking about major things that they said they would do, that they have not done. I mean, where are the factories? Are you aware of any factories that have been built that represent the sort of promise that was given? Indeed, we are in the second year of the Akufo-Addo government. We have about 3 months to go to the end of the year. And if you are promised 216 factories, that is if you consider the fact that at the time that we were making those promises, there were 216 districts. So let's say 216 factories are what we expect. And we cannot point to any significant number of factories that have come up. It does not inspire confidence in me or anybody else for that matter. I'm sure even the most rabid MPP supporter would have pause when he thinks about this promise and say that, why, if in 2 years you have not delivered any number of factories, who is to believe you when you say that in 4 years you deliver 216? So when you compare those promises and the manner in which they have been dishonored to this latest promise, it gives one some doubt about the capacity of government to deliver. Otherwise, any effort to boost agric can only be welcome.
The argument is that the government has 4 years, so
yes, but
within the 4 years,
but we are rational people.
Okay.
Sometimes you can apply logic, you can make inferences, you can make deductions based on the government's own output. For instance, if by this time about 40 or 50 factories had taken off, and they are functioning, and some outcomes have been yielded, then you can place a measure of confidence in government and say that, oh, at least it is an impressive start. But as I speak to you, there's not a factory that you can lay a finger on. So why do you think that if in 2 years they have not delivered one that you can call by its name, they are going to be able to deliver 260? Mind you, the senior minister, about a month or 2 ago, went on record and said that they are not going to deliver 216 factories and that they face some bottlenecks and challenges. Again, you look at the various timelines that senior government officials have given. I recall that Mr. Amukalinsi, the deputy trade minister, once said that 68 of them would be available by the end of last year. Mr. Alan Chamantin, the trade minister himself, also said about 99 or so had taken off. Indeed, Madam Gifty Ohini Konedu last year said that by June, 10 of them would be ready. None of these timelines were met.
So John Kumas told me here too.
Indeed, when he said that 2 or 3 days later, and he's in Parliament, he can confirm it. The trade minister was called before Parliament to give an account of where things stood. And he said that as of the time that he was speaking, and this is just about 2 months ago, none of the factories had taken off, except that he repeated the claim that processes were ongoing and all that. So their own words do not inspire confidence that these
let George have a remark.
Otherwise, I cannot be opposed to
anything that will push
to help farmers and boost agric.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm happy that Felix is not opposing the facility to help farmers boost productivity. I'd like to react to a few things. First, on the planting for food and jobs. Right. Okay. I believe that Felix would admit that the Minister of Food and Agric was asked a number of questions in Parliament, and he came and he explained how the calculations were done. Beyond certain people getting jobs because of these additional farming inputs that have been provided, there are new farms that are being created. There are new farms that are being created.
He didn't say where those farms were.
Who didn't say?
In fact, the Agric Minister, the Peasant Farmers Association, have challenged him to show where those farms are. Well, he hasn't been able to say.
Well, I believe that he answered it to the satisfaction of Parliament. Okay, and so that was the basis for the number of people that have been given an opportunity to get jobs from the Planting and Food and Jobs program. Okay, now specifically to the 1 district, 1 factory, which is actually veering off the main discussion. Okay, there are a number of these factories in different phases of taking off. And I'm sure that we all agree that for most of these factories that are going to be involved in processing of, say, pineapples, processing of other things, the outgrower scheme needs to be put in place, okay? Whilst the actual brick and mortar factory is being constructed, because you learn from challenges that the sugar factory faced. You learn from challenges that the Ayensu starch factory faced. Okay, and then you put in place the outgrower scheme to make sure that there's a constant supply of the raw material. And I'm sure that if your team went to a Kumfi, for example, you see the number of acres that have been cultivated. Okay. So yes, I mean,
but the youth have chased the government rep.
I don't think that is what we're talking about. Okay, we're talking about the one district, one factory. I'm giving you facts about the outgrower scheme that has been implemented in Ekumfi. If you want to challenge that, we can talk about it. Okay, or you can send your team there to go and look at it. Okay, and I believe that, like Felix is saying, if you take my constituency, for example, or the Wuchisinya West constituency, there's a lot of illegal sand winning that takes place there, and the environment is degraded. You have in the night, I mean, you have these trucks just moving out, and so what is happening with one of the one district one factories is to put in place an ultra modern concrete manufacturing company that's looking at adding value to the sand that is being mined from the place, and also putting in place an arrangement to make sure that you can go back and reclaim the land. You're employing people from within the constituency. I think so far about 11 people have been employed. The plan is to ramp up to 45 by the end of the year. Okay, so there are some of these things that are happening that we may not be blowing the whistles and ringing the bells, I mean, which we should. Okay, if we talk about all of these things, which we should, then people like Felix would be a bit more comfortable to know that there are things.
He says the minister was in Parliament. They asked him specifically about the factory. I'm asking the factories because he raised a critical point about those major projects that have been announced and yet have not been fulfilled, including the one district, one factory, one village, one dam, all those projects. Well, and he says that gives him a lot of doubt to believe in this
what he himself
500 million.
I do respect his opinion. He's entitled to his opinion, and I'm sure that within the next couple of days we'll probably be toasting to the celebration.
How many days?
Well, next couple of days. I mean, maybe I should invite him to a Wuchisinya West so he can come and see he can come and see what is happening there. Okay. But yes, you said we have 4 years. I mean, it's not in our interest not to put out any more of these factories, and I'm not sure that he loves Ghanaians any more than MPP does. So it is in our interest to make sure that...
Is the government under pressure to deliver these things?
When you say under pressure, I do not understand exactly what you mean.
From you. People have lost their jobs in the banking sector. They don't want to go into a break. They are hoping that the factories will be up and running so they can go and work there.
Well, I think government is sensitive to the needs of its people. Government is a listening government, and government will do everything. You know, when we were campaigning, our manifesto was the agenda for change, creating prosperity and equal opportunities for all, and we still committed to that.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, Johnny, if I may, you see, I appreciate George's point, but you see, the promises that they made in the 2016 campaign leading up to the elections were so specific in nature that it is very easy to take stock of progress. Okay. They did not make blanket pronouncements that they were going to build factories. They were very specific. They said every district in this country would have a factory. So when you come
by the
to
end
power,
of our first term.
that is correct. But you see, when you come to power and you begin work that will lead to the establishment of a factory in each district, I think we all see it. Okay. It is obvious at this stage that they are not going to deliver the number of factories that they said.
You can't say that for
no?
sure.
I told you about the senior minister, and unless the impression is being created that the senior minister's words mean nothing, and I would like to disagree with that, because he's a senior person in this government, at least from their own disposition as a government. He has said, he was at the Graphic Business Forum about a month or two ago, and he was clear that they were not going to deliver 216 factories, which would vindicate the position of those of us who cautioned them to be wary of the kind of points that they make on the campaign platform, because it was a tad overambitious, given our history, our circumstance, our resource envelope, and what have you. So it is little wonder that in government they have struggled, even to have 10 to boast about. And I spoke about a minister because often you hear persons in government from diverse backgrounds operating in different sectors showing about numbers. But I believe that he would agree, for instance, that if any matter concerning the communications ministry came up, he or the minister would be the most authoritative sources of information. So when the trade minister, who is a man put in charge of this project, goes to parliament and he is asked explicitly to give an account of where things stand, and he says that as of the time that he was speaking 2 months ago, shortly after John Kume's claims, that not a single factory had taken off, but there was work ongoing to ensure that this project takes off. Now, it's been 2 years. I think that is too much time, more than enough time. Almost 2 years. More than enough time for all the background work to have been concluded, especially when you bear in mind that in their very first budget statement around March 2017, they earmarked an amount of 400 million Ghana cedis to finance that project. Not too long after that, they announced that they had secured some $2 billion from China when the vice president visited the country to finance this project. Then, about 3 months ago, if I'm not mistaken, the Minister of Trade signed an MOU with a Chinese firm, $400 million. And the claim then was that it was going to be used to finance these projects. Now, when you put all of these together and you set it against the reality on the ground, what is exactly happening in our communities, you see a mismatch. So the actions taken on this particular promise have not matched the rhetoric. And that is why I'm saying that.
Are you disappointed?
Oh, yes, I am. And every Ghanaian not to, because you recall that it became a topical matter. And those of us who were cautioning that they should be wary of what they say were labeled skeptics and pessimists and what have you. Indeed, when we challenged them to provide details, they produced a map showing which part of this country will have what resource will be mined and all that. It was clear that...
But some of the MPs have not disputed, for example, in Dadaklu, they have not disputed that there's clay there so they can have...
Yes, but I'm saying that it appeared that they did not give much consideration to what it would take to put in place a factory. Perhaps they were carried away by the populist fervor that was gripping the country at the time. People wanted to hear about job creation. And you know that we have a large army of unemployed people. So that promise resonated with people. Except that beyond that resonance, we didn't have much thought going into the planning of that project. They also did not factor in the fact that it is not easy to raise resources for some of these things. Initially, when the promise was made, the impression conveyed was that government was going to look for resources to implement it. Then later on, they modified it a bit and said that it was going to be a partnership between government and the private sector. Right. When they came into power, their initial maneuvers gave the impression that they were serious about this thing and they were going to do it. The China trip and all of that. But several months down the line, almost 2 years down the line, one does not get a lot of comfort when you examine what has happened actually on the ground. And I think that whatever it is that they have up their sleeve, they need to speed it up because people are fast losing confidence in the ability to discharge this point. Again, finally, before he comes in again, he dismissed the Ekunfi incident. And of course, it is not a desirable situation to have the youth of this country chasing ministers around. It's not something that we need to encourage. But it sends a certain signal that those of us in the political class ought to be mindful of. That increasingly, people are becoming frustrated. There's a lot of hardship in the system. And if people begin to vent their spleen on political leaders, on members of parliament, ministers, and what have you, it means that we are getting to a tipping point. And perhaps government ought to fashion out more convincing arguments and persuasive, if you like, arguments.
All right.
That will win over the public. Instead of living in denial and thinking that.
Let's move on. We're going to dwell on this topic forever.
No. I mean, I think that my brother Felix needs to be a bit more supportive. I mean, I understand where he's coming from. I understand his concerns about the delay in some of these flagship projects that we campaigned on. But I want to assure him that just like how we delivered on the free SHS, where there were concerns about the free SHS. Incidentally, free SHS, the second year starts tomorrow. So I would like to talk about a bit about
the double track system,
about free SHS. Okay, it's just like how we were able to deliver on our commitment to to give people or to give Ghanaians the opportunity to enjoy free SHS. We will deliver on these things, on these promises as well. Now, talking about free SHS, which is taking off tomorrow, I would like to congratulate the over 500 people that have applied. My understanding is that for this year, the actual enrollment is going up to about 490,000.
Almost 500,000.
Yes, over and above the 400 that it was last year. And out of this 490, as at midnight yesterday, 450,000 of them had actually been placed. So there's just about 40,000 of them that are now short of being placed, and they are doing the online placement because of a few challenges with the system. Now these are 490, if you assume that each of them comes from one household, just for the purpose of this discussion, okay, 490 households that have been touched, saving up to about 2,500 Ghana cedis that we've actually been the cost of feeding, the cost of school uniforms, the cost of registration fees, the cost of medical services, the cost of vacation classes. I mean, all these costs that the government is picking up. So yes, there are things that are happening, and all Ghanaians are being given the opportunity to access free SHS, as we had discussed.
But the bottlenecks initially that were there regarding where the children will sleep, issues of dining halls, serving also as lecture halls, and so many other issues that came up.
My brother, with every ambitious project, there will be teething problems. I mean, we shouldn't shy away from the fact that whatever problems that came up were looked at and were resolved. Okay.
Were they?
Or what?
Somebody says,
can
look.
Can I?
Hold on, Joe.
Let me finish my submission, and then you can come in if you don't.
I want to supply information.
Well, let me finish, and then if you think that there's a need to supply information, you may do so. Because when you keep on interrupting, you actually let me lose my train of thought.
Sorry about that.
Okay. So with these, I'll be the first to deny that we didn't face challenges in the implementation. Okay, and some of the things that when you are not on ground, you don't have the actual situation, and when you come on ground, you realize that there's a different situation on ground. And so you don't. The issue is that you had a situation where the president himself came publicly and said that there were issues that had been identified with implementation, and then within a week, the Minister of Education came out with the solutions to those problems that had been.
The issues that were raised, if I remember, were that in some schools they didn't have dormitories, so some of the people were sleeping outside. In some of the schools they didn't have classrooms, so dining halls were becoming classrooms. They eat and then they clear it and then they go and learn, which was delaying contact hours. In some of the instances, they were talking about real classrooms that were not existent. As far as we speak right now, we have not added on to the classrooms. We have not expanded the dining halls. We have not, those issues are still there. So somebody then suggests that, why don't we invest the money we want to use for the double track into expanding these facilities to make sure that everybody who gets in there is comfortable, first of all? What do you say to that?
I totally disagree. It's an opinion that someone may have. But I don't think that I would have loved a situation where people from my constituency, and in my constituency you have you have students in the Obracho Secondary School that are taking part in this double track.
Okay.
Now, you're saying that about 2,000 people should be left not to go to school. Okay, the solution, the interim solution, and again, we need to emphasize that the double track program is not a permanent solution to the problem. Okay, because of these challenges that you've spoken about, the lack of adequate infrastructure, the Ministry of Education have had to do a serious thinking through, and they've come out with an interim solution, which is the double track system. Now, the double track system would allow more people who have qualified, to be given an opportunity to go through through the educational system, okay, with the existing infrastructure, whilst in parallel, the ongoing program to ramp up the infrastructure needs. And the plan that has been done is looking at a period of 3 years, by which time the infrastructure requirements would be able to match.
Do we have the money? That's the question.
Well, I believe that the plan, I mean, if you look at from Get Fund and from other sources, I mean, the fact that the ministry didn't say that in 6 months would ramp up the infrastructure, but they said in 3 years, and then in their plan, there's clarity as to where the source of funding is going to come from. So I have every reason to be confident that within the 3 years program that the ministry has drawn, to be able to bridge the gap in as far as infrastructure is concerned, and be able to move away from the double track system to a regular system. I mean, we should be good. The good thing is that we are giving people the opportunity to go to school. Over 90,000 people that would normally, or 90,000 brothers and sisters, younger brothers and sisters that would normally would not have the opportunity to go to school. I mean, we're able to do so.
Finally, George, on this one before we bring in Felix, somebody said that, well, because we don't have a policy document, it looks as if we are at every single
when you say there's no policy document,
is there a policy document?
Of course, there's a policy document for 3 years.
I haven't seen it.
Well, if you haven't seen it, doesn't mean that there
Felix,
isn't.
have you seen that policy document?
Well, the fact that you can let your producers check with the ministry.
Is it in Parliament? Has it been presented to Parliament here? Because I'm sure.
Well, it doesn't have to be presented to Parliament. Is a ministry's policy document. I mean, you can get your if you get your producers to go to the Ministry of Education, and there's no document that informs you as to what the reasoning is and how the implementation is going to be done, then you can come and say that there's no policy document. Right. But I think that it's most unfair for you just because you haven't seen it.
Is it not fair to say that when government wanted to launch the free SHS, send people around with T-shirts to come and have a conversation with us on television? And then once there's a policy document,
I believe that all those people
held to the chest.
I disagree with you that it's being held to the chest. I believe that all headmasters, have been giving access to this policy document.
About the media, we don't have.
Maybe you haven't.
No.
Listen. Let's be fair here.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's not do this kind of.
Oh, I'm not. I'm just asking George.
Okay, no, the fact that you do not have access to it in the first place, I want to put it to you that there's a policy document.
Okay.
Okay, so the fact that you do not have access to it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Okay. I mean, it is as well my responsibility to let you have access to it. This is the first time that you're mentioning to me that you haven't had access to the policy document. So I'll take up that responsibility and try and get you and Felix copies of that.
TV3 is grateful to you that we'll get a copy.
You know, Johnny, starting from the issue of the policy document, I mean, if a policy document does exist on free SHS, I would describe it as the best kept secret of this
better than the Kwesi report.
The Ministry of Education. Well, at least in the case of the Kwesi report, you can argue that it's a private initiative by a political party that is not obliged.
Right.
To make it.
No,
I understand that.
No, has any headmaster told you that they don't have the policy document?
If that policy document exists, there is a best kept secret. The Ministry of Education usually puts out very useful material on their website. Very useful.
Have you checked the website?
Well, I have. I have not seen the policy document.
When was the last time you checked?
I go there regularly.
I'm
just
not
so
sure.
that I
I'm not sure
for the figures. So that when I'm engaged in debate, I do so from a position of information. But you see, Johnny, on a more serious note, the double track system and its introduction is the clearest indication yet that the free SHS program suffers from the same deficiency that almost all the offerings of this government suffer from: poor conceptualization. It is also obvious that that program was fashioned with the sole purpose of winning elections rather than enhancing Ghana's educational fortunes. To begin with, I am not opposed to any effort that is aimed at ensuring that cost does not become a barrier to education. And definitely, as a social democrat, I'll be the last to be opposed to any move that makes sure that the vulnerable in society also access education. So the arguments that we have been making and I'm about to make has nothing to do with opposition to the principle of allowing people from poor backgrounds to access education.
Right.
But that can be done without subjecting our educational system to the sort of assault that it is undergoing now. The double track system represents a certain ad hoc approach to resolving a problem that is largely self-inflicted. Because you see, before they started the program, George and his colleagues in government cannot claim that they were not aware that the problems that were already existing in the educational sector were going to be compounded by the fact that they did not have the resources that they required to finance this program. And indeed, the double track system itself has come about because they themselves have admitted that they don't have all the resources to accommodate the number of students who ought to be in school. Now, in terms of real actual numbers, the numbers are not much higher than what they came to meet. Indeed, last year, according to their own statistics, 424,000 people were placed in schools. This year is 490, so the difference is about 74,000. That is the increase in numbers. That is not significantly different from what has happened over the last 10 years. There was a period, 2009, 2010, when enrollment went up by 180,000. We didn't have free SHS at the time. There was no double track. There was another period between 2011 and 2012 when enrollment went up 84,000.
And he picked at what?
What do you mean?
He picked at what?
Well, I don't get.
He peaked at what figure?
Oh, I think it was around almost 400,000. It's not. You see, I told you that the Ministry of Education has very useful material. Right. So they put out enrollment figures, data over the period. But the point I'm making here is that the increase in enrollment is not substantially different from what has happened in the past. Okay. So what has happened is that infrastructure has been expanded alongside the running of the system to meet that goal. That is the reason why we launched the Community Day School project. Okay. It was because we knew that enrollment figures at the basic level had gone up. Okay. Currently, there are almost 5 million pupils in the basic level. Correct. That means right away that more people will be writing BEC next year than they did this year. So, give and take, or give or take, you are going to have more people qualifying to go to senior high school than this year. So you need to make room for that increase. It is for that reason that if you have limited resources, you don't stretch yourself thin through an omnibus implementation of a project or a program that you do not have all the resources for. So what you do in the implementation of all social interventions is to target. And often when you have raised the issue of targeting, government officials have rebutted and retorted that how are they going to identify poor people? How do they identify those who benefit from school feeding? Because it's not all pupils in basic school who benefit from school feeding. When you go to Achimota school, they don't have school feeding. When you go to all the private schools that we have, they don't have school feeding, despite the fact that they are also Ghanaian children. It is because government recognizes that it's not every Ghanaian child who has the problem of not being able to access nutritious food and water. When you come to LEAP, why is it that George's household and my household and your household do not benefit from LEAP, but around only 200,000 households benefit from the project? They do targeting. They look out for those who are in real need and assist them. So if even the argument of 90,000 increase in enrollment, and the actual figure is 67,000, if you go to the education website, the Ministry of Education website, the EMIS data they put out, that the actual increase in enrollment for last year was 67,000, not the initial 90,000 that was announced. So that is for the records. That 67,000 people were those who would not have gained access to senior high school but for FSC. That argument is flawed anyway, because over the years, we've always had increase in enrollment, and you cannot attribute it scientifically to one policy or the other. The most logical conclusion is that the numbers.
Is it not fair to give the MPP credit?
No, I'm making a point
for making it free.
I'm making a point. I'm making a point that the principle underlying free SHS, I would want to believe, was that no Ghanaian child should see that because my parents could not afford to pay my fees, I'm sitting at home, even though I've qualified for SHS. That's the bottom line, unless John disagrees. So once you determine that that is something that must be pursued, you fashion out a way to do it that does not compound existing problems and create problems for government itself. As of this stage, they would admit that they are struggling. The resources are not easy to come by. So I am saying that what they ought to have done was to target the people who would have been affected by the issue of cost and ensure that they cater for the needs of those people. You recall that when we launched the Secondary Education Improvement Project, apart from the fact that we were building community day schools, we also targeted about 10,000 students. Not only were their fees paid, they were actually given stipends. They were giving backpacks, they were giving books, everything, including sanitary pads, so that that too does not become a barrier to education. So if they had targeted, they would have been able to capture those who genuinely were in need.
The finance minister suggested that.
Absolutely. I'm not the one. The suggestion that the finance minister makes is actually the same that we are making. That look, the resource envelope is limited. you don't have unlimited resources. Again, you have not identified any additional source of revenue to justify free SHS. You are going to do it from the same resources.
I think it's only
so
fair
target.
that
Now, if you target, you will have additional resources that you can then use to improve issues of quality and access so that you expand. The double track system is temporary. That means that they themselves know that it is not the solution to the problem. It is the shift system that they
allow George to have the final bite.
They are struggling, and it's not what they promised.
I mean, obviously, the double track system is a temporary solution. Nobody has denied that. We would not be in this country as leaders in this country and have a situation where people that qualify to go to school are not given the opportunity to go to school, more especially given the opportunity to experience free SHS. It won't happen. We have this internal arrangement that is going to make sure that these people go through. Now, talking about targeting, it's a fact that we don't have that much sophisticated data in Ghana. I mean, you know the efforts that are being made to make sure that everybody gets a TIN, that everybody gets a digital address, that everybody gets a national ID card. So in building a national database, you then have much more sophisticated information to be able to do this targeting, this targeting right. Hold on. No. When you're looking at school feeding, you're looking at communities.
Absolutely.
You're looking at communities. If you take a school like Achimota, where it is not, the peoples that come there are not from a community. You need to make sure that if Felix's son or Felix's daughter is going there, you know what Felix's income is. You know how much taxes Felix is paying. And then you can identify that his ward doesn't qualify for free SHS. And this is clearly what the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Education have stated. And so we'll get there. But we cannot say that because we haven't gotten there yet, we're going to let out. We're going to let
communication. Let me ask you, the national ID thing, where is it?
It's not on the Ministry of Communications. But it's ongoing.
Right, it's ongoing.
Yes. They are doing the institutional. They are doing. You asked the question. They are doing the institutional issuance. So they've done Parliament. I think they've done the ministries. They've done the security forces, and after that they'll be doing areas. If you look at the timetable, it's being followed.
I hear you.
But there's such a long time. But finally, the double track is essentially a shift system. The same shift system that we eliminated at basic level.
It is not a shift system.
But that is what it is.
It is not
the only difference is that instead of a few hours, it is now several months.
It says multi-track.
No, you see, it simply means that some students go to
school.
It's
not an open area school.
Yes, in the past it was an open area, but now it's Bosomi.
George Anda is the MP for Ewutu Senya West constituency. He's also Deputy Minister for Communications Agencies. Ney. Yeah, nice one.
It's very important for the constituency.
George Ney Anda is the MP for Ewutu Senya West constituency, also Deputy Minister for Communications. He's been here on behalf of the MPP. And Phyllis Kwachiofosu is a Deputy Minister for Communications, former. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. George, thank you very much. Sports is up next here on Newday.
You're welcome back. Time to talk issues about mission, and Ketsi Star Ghana mission is brought to you by the European Union, UK Aid, and Danida. This morning we're talking about inclusive education. What exactly that program is? The Ghana Education Service is suggesting that as part of the My First Year School program, kids who are entering will be screened. This is to detect any disability and perhaps make referrals and also intervene if need be to get these kids to start on the right footing. I guess will help us understand what the policy is and exactly what the screening is expected to do for these kids. She's the Acting Director, Special Education at that education service. Madam Aminai Chan is my guest. Good morning.
Good morning,
Hope you're doing great.
By God's grace.
I'm grateful for your time with us this morning. Now, let's start the conversation this way. Even before we talk about exactly what inclusive education is. Now, the Education Service is suggesting that between 13th and 17th September, when new ones are entering, a special screening is expected to be done. This is to detect disability in order to help them. exactly what informed that decision? Of course, it is not new.
Thank you very much. I'd like to take the opportunity to also greet all listeners and viewers.
Right.
This exercise is informed by the policy of inclusive education, its implementations. It's one of the activities that we need to embark on. Inclusive education, as you asked us, it's about making all arrangement, educational arrangement, of course,
right,
to providing equitable and quality education for all learners, all children, especially children with special needs. So irrespective of your background, being gender, economic, race, or ethnicity, or disability, or any other circumstances.
We are supposed to intervene and get you to go to school. That's it.
Everyone.
So that even if a child has lost both parents,
orphans are included.
It is our duty.
The street children, the children, Fulani children, excuse me to say, the nomadics, the displaced, children with even HIV issues, or parents died out of HIVs. All these manner of children are also included.
Our mandate is to get them to go to school.
They are mandated. We have guiding principles.
Are we able to do it?
We are on track, because we know that one of the guiding principles, every child needs to access quality education. They have to learn, and they can also afford educational opportunities. So we are making arrangements, and this is also guided by our policy objectives. So we have the main 4 objectives for this very laudable policy. The first policy objective is we want to improve and adapt all educational and its related systems, our cultures, our practices, our beliefs, to respond to the diverse needs of all children. As I said, all children included, or inclusive. And then the second objective that we are also working towards, that is also to ensure that we adhere or we promote universal design for learning, and then environment-friendly areas for our children, especially disability-friendly, physical environments. And we are looking at also training of teachers, well-informed, trained teachers or human resource cadre will be able to
teachers will be able to teach
this
with special
needs in the classrooms. And the fourth objective is to ensure sustainability of the programs or the projects.
Let's come back to where you started. You said that we are on track, suggesting that there are some issues with getting things done right. What is hindering us from getting this policy properly implemented? Some challenges you encounter.
There are, of course, some challenges. Can I also highlight on some of the achievements?
We'll come to talk about that. But let's talk about, since you said that we are on track, I want us to see if there are certain obstacles. Then from there, we'll look at how to go around them and achieve what we want to achieve.
Thank you very much. Yes, there are some challenges. Let me start from the classroom point of view. We have large classes. You go to the classroom during monitoring, you see about a class containing about 20 to 50 students. But ideally, with special schools or our principals, children with special needs, children with disabilities, are supposed to have at most 1 teacher to 8 children, or 1 teacher to 15 at most. But you go to schools,
so that you can take care of those with special needs.
Because of their special and peculiar needs. Some are having problem with dyslexia, reading. Some are having problem with dyscalculia. That is calculations, arithmetic, and then
so the teacher will spend more time with him or her.
Vision,
so if the class size is large, it means that that particular student will suffer.
Especially because the inclusive education, we are saying that children with mild to moderate disabilities can be mainstreamed in the regular schools, where the profound or higher degree of disabilities are placed at the special schools. When we send the children who have mild and moderate disabilities to the regular school, where we want their peers to socialize with them so that we have that inclusive environment. If the classes are so large, children with special needs, they need special attention, cannot be given that needed attention because the teacher cannot alone
be able to take care of them. That is foiling our effort. In terms of, so this is by way of the teacher. In terms of providing for these ones, the textbooks, the learning materials, any breakthrough?
We also have that challenge. I wanted to also talk about that. We look at the curriculum itself. It's also rigid in such a way that the students with special needs cannot cope for now. And then we look at appropriate teaching and learning materials.
They are not there.
They are not also there. But as I talk now, GS and Ministry of Education, we've come up with NACA, that's the National Council for Curriculum Assessment, reviewing our curriculum comprehensively. So we sent our concept notes and our inputs from Special Education Division, for that matter, towards working for children with special needs. So they will
support them.
Yes, so that we have a flexible curriculum
for these ones. So for instance, if you remember, TB3 did a story about young Matilda who would need to write a WASI and would need a system device to write, but then she doesn't have it, and so the work is to provide these ones with support like that.
Support system, yes. Yes, Matilda's case, she was not able to do some of the mathematics topics. So our division has also liaised with the special coordinator and then other stakeholders
to deal with it.
To get a specific and a special software for her. She did very well. She's now at West African Senior High School. But we are trying hard to...
Is there hope that before she writes a WASI,
hopefully
we'll have a breakthrough?
Yes, we'll have breakthrough. We are working very hard to get the needed assisted devices for her and then appropriate teaching materials.
This project is indeed achieving results, the inclusive education, the caring for kids with special needs. What are the areas we can pinpoint as having made strides?
All right. We've made some landmarks since the policy was rolled out. We have been able to, with support from other stakeholders like UNICEF, UNESCO, World Bank, and then other civil society organizations like Inclusion Ghana, Ghana Blind Union, National Council for People with Disabilities, Ghana Federation of Disability, GNEC, and the like.
Right.
Especially UNICEF has supported the system to produce and published about 37,000 copies of the document, Inclusive Education Policy documents.
To guide implementers.
Yes, to guide implementation. And aside that, we have other related documents like costed implementation, work plan, that's also about 37,000 copies. And then minimum standard guidelines, about 14,000 copies we've published, we've distributed to all relevant places that need them. And in the implementation work plan, all activities have been earmarked explicitly so that we follow. And then with the minimum standard guidelines, where we have specification, I talked about the second policy objective of universal design for learning. So standards like when we want to provide infrastructure, specifications are there for compliance. So we have
for school building.
For school building, so that like classroom having
people
wide
with
doors.
Physical challenges.
Yes.
Can they go through?
Yeah, like ramps. raised, like ventilation, lighting for children with low vision and the like. So with the support with
so the guidelines have been made.
They have been made.
When you visit these schools, do you get the feeling that these are being followed?
Some of them we have visited, and UNICEF with the government supported us to adapt about 20 focus districts. So with the 20 focus districts from 7 regions, like the Northern, Upper West, Upper East, Central region, Eastern, and then Volta, we have been able to implement some of
the guidelines.
Yes, guidelines. Like the ramps we are talking about, some of the students have been mainstreamed, visit them, they are making headway, and then we also conduct screening for the children before, as we want to also
Start
have that exercise for my
30.
first day.
I was going to go there. So before a child gets to KG1, that's if the school has KG1 or the crèche, he or she goes through screening.
Yes, please. With the focus districts, the age appropriate for enrollments for new entrances from 4 years to 6 years before they enter into the mainstream P1. So in our policy guidelines, the new entrants are supposed to be screened. So the 20 focus districts that we have started with, they have been screened, and we have almost about 134,837 children have been screened, and about 24,700 have been referred. So we have some referral points to send them for further diagnosis and where they need medication before placement in our schools.
Okay. So over 134,000 of them screened. Now, what do we look out for in screening them?
We look at any disability, like in terms of hearing,
right,
and then their vision, then physical mobility there is visible. So we look at that, and then the level, the degree of that disability. I talk about some children this time around, teachers don't even notice that it's maybe dyslexia. So we also look at that to see if maybe the child is good, but it's the problem of maybe vision.
Right.
You cannot make out differences of the alphabet letters and the phonics. So we look at that. And then we are also working with Ghana Health Service.
Okay.
As I said, so technically they are also with us. And then we have special education coordinators and resource teachers around. And we've trained them. We have given them training. The head teachers too, we have given them training. About 7,000 plus head teachers and managers and teachers.
Having
so that
trained
they
to be able to support these.
Do basic training.
Now, when these kids are screened, we have this. We get kids who are slow learners and those with low vision.
Hearing.
What then happens in the classrooms in which they are placed?
And that is where we said we've also given them in-service training. Now we have in-service training model helped by or supported by UNICEF.
Right.
So we have started, we have even given some of the models to the teachers. We are here to do the cascade method of training.
Okay.
So those teachers who have received the training, we ask them to also go and retrain their teachers so that they will also acquire that basic knowledge and skills and at least training the little ones. So in the classroom, we have something like behavior modification strategies. So if you are able to identify a child with a special need, a disability, be able to also adapt these strategies as to help the child. Maybe it's vision. Where do you place the child? It's maybe hearing, doing some auditory discrimination to detect and see where you also place the child. If it's the left or the right ear, where you position the child, so they'll be able to also
help these kids. I guess we'll have more time to talk about it, but that's where we'll wrap up our conversation. I'm grateful for your time this morning.
So I wanted to talk on this training.
Quickly, but we're wrapping up. Quickly.
All right. So I would like to tell all parents that this coming, my first day at school, school is being reopened, God willing, on the 11th. Right. That's tomorrow.
That's tomorrow.
Yes. So we will encourage all parents whose children have some form of disabilities. They normally hide them in their homes. So we want them to be sensitized that if a child has a need, being a disability is not inability. They should enroll them. They should bring them to the schools. They should not say they are ghosts or their water babies.
Okay,
so they should bring them to so that they also access quality education.
They will be screened and supported to overcome whatever disability.
And early detection, we will know what to do for them.
I guess we will wrap up here. Madam Amenecha is the Acting Director, Special Education Division of the Ghana Education Service. And tomorrow, the screening will start. And those of you, she said, who have kids out there, even though they have one form of disability or the other, take them to these schools. The experts are there to handle them. Stay with us. There is more on education coming. Right, let's talk about education again. From special inclusive education, we're talking about education in general. And of course, sure, you know that those on the double track will be going to school tomorrow. And the West African Examinations Council, the body that oversees exam organization in the country and issues surrounding education. My guest this morning is a former head of the West African Examinations Council. I'm talking about very Reverend Dr. Samni Ingmai Oleno, my guest this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
And hope you're great.
Yes, I'm doing well.
Let's start from here. The double track students are going to school this week. Yes. Now, what should be the effort in making sure that we're sending our kids to school and they are getting what they need to get to develop?
I want to believe that the government has put in some measures already, you know, because last year when the free SHS took off,
right,
some supplies were made and some measures were put in place. So there is already some kind of platform upon which they are going to build. And so I would expect that, you know, learning from, you know, the past experience, 1 year, something better should have been put in place to ensure that those who are going to start will start on a sound note. And I want to believe that in the GES we have experts, you know, who will look at, you know, what needs to be done. And let us grant them the benefit of the doubt that they are going to do a good job.
The next question is, those who would have to wait, what can we, parents, education, society, do to support them whilst they're waiting so that they don't get rusty, they don't run amok?
Well, I would recommend that if, you know, some kind of classes could be organized. For instance, during the long vacation classes are organized. And I know that the PRO of the Ghana Education Service said they were going to do something like that, using churches and then town halls and so on. I don't know how feasible that is going to be, but if it is, then it can be a stopgap measure. And of course, that is what they intend doing, to keep them active, you know, until the time comes when, you know, they will have to go back into school.
But you're not too sure if it is workable.
Well, it should be. You see, I think that looking at the numbers, I don't know how many centers they are going to be using. You know, the numbers are quite huge. So that is my difficulty. But because I have not engaged them one-on-one to know exactly what they have put in place, I cannot really speak and then, you know, let me say that, doubt what they have in place to make it work.
Let's talk about the outfit that you once had at the West African Examinations Council. How relevant is it today?
The West African Examinations Council is relevant and will continue to be relevant. You know, when people talk about examinations, they only look at the summative, but they don't look at the formative aspect of it. You see, examination, first of all, even serves as a motivation for learning. What do you think will happen if there is no examination? And how would the people perform? Would they really go on to learn? No. So let us look at more the motivation to learn. And education, you know, examinations also provide data for the government or policymakers to use to put in interventions to improve the system further. So West Africa Examinations Council will always be relevant. And you see, if we want to depend on classroom tests alone, it wouldn't help. Because you are with the students, and we know what happens sometimes when, you know, you have your own students and you are going to organize tests for them. You know what goes on. In fact, I was in the US, and one story that came up, a teacher that in a school, you know, gave the questions to his kids. And then when the scores were when the test papers were being marked, they saw that, there were similarities. And then investigations were put in place. And lo and behold, it came out that, he was even giving the questions.
The questions out.
Yes, even in the US. So you see, it's an everyday occurrence. So I think that we need the external examinations to support the classroom examinations, to give good data for policymakers to use to put in good interventions for our education system.
You're not suggesting that under WAEC we don't have exam leakages, question leakages?
No, it used to be, but now no. It used to be, but now no, because we've put in stringent measures that wouldn't make any paper leak now. In fact, now the difficulties that we are having is when the question papers are given to the candidates, then some unscrupulous invigilators and so on will go and take a snapshot and then put it on social media.
So leakages can be stopped?
Sure.
But you cannot rule out totally that we won't have leakages, even no matter how stringent the measures are?
No, I'm saying that we can rule out leakages, but we cannot rule out examination malpractice, completely, because, people want to dupe even students and so on. So those are all part of examination malpractice. But leakage itself, now we think it should be a thing of the past because of the measures that we have put in place.
Because of the WAEC is still relevant. That's just a suggestion.
Because
of that ability to ensure leakages are stopped, you think WAEC still remains relevant?
That is not the reason why WAEC is relevant. I'm saying that because examination provides motivation for learning, and also it provides data for policy making, it makes WAEC still relevant. And of course, you need to place the candidates. You need to assess their abilities. So you need to even counsel them and say that you are good in this, you are good in that one, why don't you go into this area? So all these, data are needed, to direct the candidates. And so if you say examination should not be there, how are you going to get the data to formulate policies? How are you going to get the data to put in interventions?
What about those who said that instead of getting WAEC, why don't you assess our students continuously whilst in school so that they do not have to write any final WAEC paper?
Now, we even, I'm saying that the grading system has some continuous assessment aspect of it. But I tell you, some of the marks that come, you will see for everybody in the school, nobody is getting below 90%. Everybody is getting 90%. And yet, when you give them the external exams, you have people getting as low as 5%, some of them even 0%.
Is it not the environment?
No, it is because of the credibility
Someone
of those.
Standing on your neck, right?
No, it's not so. It's because you see, in the external exams, the true abilities of the candidates, are tested and solicited, But when it gets to the consumer assessment, I must say that some of the teachers are doing well, but others are not. And so if we don't take care, there will be a skew, you see. So if the external examination comes in, it corrects this kind of anomaly that we find in the classroom testing.
Should we have a situation where the grading system allows the external exams to, the continuous exams in the classrooms offers more grades than the external exam, as we have it, a turnover, as we have it now?
Australia tried that.
It didn't work?
No, they started just like we had, 30 for the classroom, and then 70 for the external. Then they said 50-50, and then they said 30 for the external, 70 for the internal. And then they realized that the teachers were not doing a good job. So they have now gone back to the 30 for the external, 30 for the internal, and 70 for the external. So I think that what we have now is good.
The results we're getting, what could be the reason? We're told that a lot of our students are unable to get placement in our universities, particularly at the senior high school level. We're told that, for instance, in the last WASC examinations, we're told that several of them couldn't make it to the universities because of certain grades. Is it a problem of the grading system, or perhaps the kind of preparation we're giving to our students?
Yes, I think it's a kind of preparation in the pedagogy.
It's not a grading system?
No, because the grading system, has, we call it criterion reference system. So the criteria is set. So as soon as you meet the criteria, you get a grade. So anybody, 100%, if 100% of the candidates meet the criteria, they all get, A, if that be the case. But you see, sometimes in the preparation, certain areas are ignored. And the chief examiner's report always highlights these areas. For instance, in mathematics, they constantly say that our students are not good in trigonometry. They are also not good in geometry. So they are expecting that the teachers will pay attention to these areas. But unfortunately, you go to some of the schools, and then the chief examiner's report, is lying in somebody's on somebody's desk and in somebody's drawer, and so they don't refer to it. So the same issue keep recurring. So we think that the issue has to do more with the preparations and the pedagogy, rather than the grading system. And I think that if we adopt teaching methods, that are attractive, that are interesting, it will help. If you look at mathematics, for instance, we observe that many of the mathematics teachers do not have any degrees in mathematics. They only have a flair for mathematics, and then they go and teach.
So that's one of the reasons.
Of course, that is it. And the same goes with English. They are not technical about it. You think English is just speaking. There are technicalities in the subject which need to be taught. And because a good number of the teachers do not have that kind of training, they are not able to deal with the technicalities in the subject.
In situations where, for instance, the syllabus is not completed, and yet that student, the grade doesn't change for that student. He or she writes the paper, and though he or she is unable to complete the syllabus, not through any fault of the student, yet it's the same grading system. Some said that it's awkward.
We wouldn't know, because the exams council is not in the classroom, So that's one, perhaps the genius will have to look at it. But we expect that the school authorities will ensure that the syllabus is completed, before the candidates go to sit for the exam. And in fact, that is part of the preparations for the examination.
But is it not possible that the chief examiners get to know that? The way the answers were suggest that certain areas were not taught in the classroom?
Yes, and that is
so
why
they would
they
have informed WAEC.
So that is why they put it into the chief examiner's report, and expect that teachers will read the chief examiner's report and then do something about those areas. Attend to them, put corrective measures. But unfortunately, as
that doesn't
saying,
happen.
Some of them
I wish we had more time to talk about this, but unfortunately, we've run out of time. Reverend, I'm very grateful for your time this morning. Reverend Very Reverend Dr. Samning Mai Oleno is a former head of the Ghana Office of the West African Examinations Council. Grateful for your Monday morning with us. And certainly we'll be talking more about education, but that's how we're wrapping up the show for this morning. We're grateful you spent your time here with us. My name is Bright Nanava. I was here with Johnny Hughes and Dr. Nana Majiman. Have a wonderful Monday morning and see you tomorrow. Good morning.